Okay, so you want to own a Disney vacation home or a second home here in Orlando, Florida. There's so much that goes into it. In this video, I'm going to cover everything you need to know when owning a second home or a Disney vacation rental here in Orlando, Florida. Let's get it. What's up, everyone? My name is Cameron Hodge. On this channel, I talk about living in and moving to Orlando, Florida, and Central Florida, and I absolutely love it, dropping videos every single week. But what I love even more is helping you with your real estate decisions when moving to or investing in Orlando, Florida. That's number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me. Call, text, email, does not matter. Every day of the week, every night, I am here to take your calls, help you make the move out here or invest out here. So, owning a second home here in Orlando, Florida. Everyone wants to talk about it. I feel like it's like the hot ticket, especially if you're already visiting here, or maybe you're just trying to expand your money and start making more income. And you're like, you know what? I've seen this Airbnb thing. I've seen this second home thing. I want to do it. I want to do it in Orlando because I go there all the time anyways, whether for business or for pleasure. It's a common thing that I definitely hear quite often. And there's a lot that goes into it. I'm not going to get super technical here, but I think the first thing, I'm coming from the standpoint that maybe you don't have any second homes already, or maybe you do, but maybe you've never short-term rented them or things like that. And I have owned short-term rentals as well. I will tell you, I have never personally owned any short-term rentals here in Orlando. I definitely ran them in Arizona. I did it quite well for several years, but then had sold those off to move on to different adventures. And I can tell you that owning second homes can be, it can definitely be profitable, but at the same time, it can be stressful if you don't know what you're doing and you need to understand what you're good at, what you're not good at, and you have to run it like a business. So let's say you're a family and you're like, look, I want to own a Disney vacation rental because I go to Orlando all the time with the family, but overall, what I really want to do is have a home that I can go to, so I'm not paying all these freaking resort fees and things like that, but I want to have it pay me when I'm not there. Totally get it. I love where your head's at and where you're thinking. So going down into it, the biggest thing you're going to run into right away is where you can and can't do it. So if there's an HOA, probably not able to do it. There are some condos, especially new construction condos going on right now, that actually allow you to do that, and they have their own property management that you can use as a part of them. But I'll tell you, beware when these places do that, because while yes, they may allow it, what you're going to run into is you're going to run into a fact that like you're not making any money every month. And man, I run into this all the time with new investors, and they're like, look, I just want to break even, Cameron. I'm like, okay, but if you're investing, it's a business. You are here to make money. Yes, you should be providing a great product, and in this case, a great home, a great place for people to visit and enjoy their time when they come here. But at the same time, like, you need to make money. Like, if you're not making even a little bit, if you're not, being positive every year, like, then it's not a business. And you're like, well, I only travel there and I'm just renting it out when I'm not there, so breaking even's okay, right? Not really, because you're still going to have maintenance. Wouldn't you want you're renting out your home to pay for maintenance on the home when the roof needs replaced, if there's a storm that comes through? Do you want that to be covered? I think you would. So make sure you choose the right area and the right home. And at the same time, it's not every home will work, right? Like, imagine, like, what do you look for when you go to do a short-term rental in Orlando? You're probably going to want at least a 3-bed, 2-bath, preferably probably maybe a 4-3, be even better. Pool, for sure, would be a huge plus. And obviously you want to have it fully furnished and make sure everything is set up. And honestly, there are some out here that they're like themed. It's nuts. Like, people definitely put a lot of work when it comes to doing this, and there's a reason why. It's because you have to stand out with the competition. There's so many Airbnbs out here, but I'll tell you, like, people do that, and like they're a lot of these Airbnbs are booked out 12 months in advance sometimes when they're that good, when they have a 5-star rating and they're ready to go. So super cool and definitely be profitable, but you have to make sure you have a good mindset going into it. Because keep in mind with that, when you're looking for like that 4-3 house, guess what? It's going to be more expensive. You're going to need more money down. And keep in mind, if you're buying a second home, guess what? You're going to have to put a higher down payment. It's not like you're buying a primary residence. And rates are also going to be higher for that. So all of that plays into it, and it's going to hurt you financially. I'm not going down the financial side right now because it's different to everyone's unique situation. And that's why you reach out to me. I can help you walk through that path with the team. And like me and Brian, we can just work you through everything, get you dialed in, and figure out, does this make sense or does it not make sense? So also at the same time is like what area. Like I said before, a lot of HOAs will say, hey, no short-term rentals, because they want it to be for people. Totally makes sense. You'll have to make sure you have a license to have that second vacation rental. You have to make sure you follow the city, the county rules of where you look at. Orlando is no different. So you have to make sure everywhere you look at that it is allowed to be done, and make sure you're not going against it. Yes, do people do it every day? Like, Cameron, I see the short-term rental. It's in this neighborhood. You told me it's not supposed to be there. It's like, yeah, because technically it's not. And do you want to be in the investor that's going to be caught in a situation where you're like, oh man, I'm relying on this income for this property? Boom, county comes in and finds out that you're doing it, or the HOA finds out and they're like, hey, shut it down. Here's a fine, and now you have to shut it down. So not only are you getting fined, now you're losing your income. It can be a disaster. So make sure you know what you're doing, you plan it out, and you go into it. And then that set aside, what I love to ask people, especially a lot of times when people are looking this up, like, should I own a Disney vacation rental? Because they haven't owned one before. And it can be stressful. Now, I have owned them across state lines. So I was stationed in California at the time. My wife did like all the work. I'll be honest with you. She's a way better manager than me. I'm definitely the one that got out there and just give me a task and I'll crush it. But she was managing it in Arizona and it did well. But I will tell you that a lot of times, like having visitor issues, complaints, it's a hospitality business. And it's a lot of work. And don't forget, it's still a business. You have to track the income, your expenses, make sure you can write it off. And sometimes when we would go to write off the income for that property, now it's a lot better than it used to be, thankfully, with a lot of banks being able to write off that income, but it can still be a disaster when you're trying to get another loan and be like, hey, this house is costing you money, and be like, oh yeah, it's an Airbnb, and you have to make sure you have all that information available to show that it's getting paid for and being written off. So a lot goes into it. Way better loan products than when I was doing it, for sure. Now, that being said, is also like it's definitely a stress, because now it's an extra thing that you have to worry about. So are you going to manage it yourself, or are you going to hire a property manager? A lot of times it'll be like, let's say 15% of your nightly rate. So however someone stays, that's what they charge, 15% of that price. They'll do everything. They'll manage your account. They'll manage the people. You give them an account to where they can hire supplies, like maybe you have a little coffee station, little package, soap, shampoo, things like that. It's like a hotel. So you're still going to have to pay for that stuff. And on top of making sure it's furnished. Now, I have seen situations where you can negotiate if like another short-term rental owner is selling their short-term rental, you can negotiate outside of going through escrow and title. You can negotiate to pay for that furniture. I have seen it done before, but don't always bank on it, because it doesn't mean it's going to happen for you. So you have to make sure that you're willing to deal with that. And like, keep in mind that property management, that's really where your big hit's going to come from, the monthly cost. Now, even though like the property management fee can really cut into it, I can tell you that if you're working a full-time job or business, you're taking care of a family, it definitely helps to make sure you have someone who's just taking care of it for you. That's just how I like to do it. We did the self-management. It's just, we learned what I want, what I don't want. So now when I go to buy them, I always factor that in, any rental property, because I want to make sure that it's someone else is managing it, and I'm just looking at the overhead, the big picture of how I want it to go, like maybe the theme, maybe like how's it going to be laid out, what's the wording on the listing, things like that. I want to make sure that the high level, that's where I thrive, that's where I like to be, and then have the property manager that's running it the day-to-day for me. Now, that being said as well, is that keep in mind is that you have to make sure that everything's lined up when you do it, because maybe you're doing this when you can't come to Orlando to visit, and we're gonna have to be doing a virtual walkthrough with you on the phone, pointing out all the bad stuff so that way you understand, make sure you have a good inspection of the property and things like that. Because most likely when you're buying a rental property, it's a lot different than a personal home. You're not moving here physically. So you have to make sure that you're comfortable with kind of doing that across state lines. I do it myself. I help many clients do it. A lot of people that reach out to us, whether they're buying investment or personal, this is just how we start the process. A lot of the times is we do virtual showings, whether it's on the phone, Zoom, we walk around the house. I tell you all the bad stuff. Like the house this is everything wrong with the house, because you need to make sure that you have like the best picture of the home, make sure if it fits your needs. And at the same time, also, actually, here is a good tip. If you're looking to do Airbnb, like a Disney vacation home, there is a website called AirDNA.com, AirDNA.com. And it is a service you do have to pay for, but it's super nice to be able to do that. And obviously, if you reach out to us, I can have that information and we can just use our account for you to help when we look around to give you those reports so you know. But what it is it ties into Airbnb, pulls all the information, how often the homes are rented for this type of home, 3-bed, 2-bath, 4-bed, 3-bath, gives you the market stats for Airbnb, tells you what you probably should be renting for, so that way you can adjust your nightly rate. So maybe if you're managing it yourself and you're like, I don't know when there's an event coming to Orlando. Well, guess what? AirDNA is probably going to tell you that, hey, like during this time, like there's an event going on, you probably should increase your nightly rate and things like that. Awesome service. It gives you so much information as a short-term rental owner. Huge tip there, because obviously if you don't know before, if you've never done it before, every property that comes across as an investor, because that's really what you are in this point. Even if you're doing it for a second home, keep in mind, like you're an investor. Get your investor hat on. And AirDNA allows you to do reports. That way you can know, like, is this profitable? Say, hey, this is how much you would expect to make for a fully furnished, top tier short-term rental Disney vacation home in this area that you're looking. It's like, okay, great. That's how much I would make. And then we have, Brian, our lender, and we look at, all right, this is what you'd be paying every single month. And then we can just figure that out, how much you would be spending or losing every month, to find out if the deal even makes sense before we even walk in the door. So all of that is super important to make sure everything's lined up, make sure you have all that tied in. And again, obviously the big emotional thing, are you willing to deal with the stress of having that property over there? Now, I will tell you that as a rental property, it's super cool, because if you do it not as a second home, but as a full-fledged rental property, now you get to write off the taxes, the depreciation, all that stuff. So that's also another benefit. As a second home, you only get to write off a portion of it. Now, I am not a tax professional. Make sure you get in touch with a CPA. If you don't have one, I have tons of recommendations for you to have an option of. But that's another benefit of that, is you actually get to, you get at least a third of the tax write-offs having a second home. So you do get some benefit, not as much if it was a full rental property, but keep in mind, it's a full rental property, you are going to be paying a full investment rate and all the fees that come with it. Yay. So it all comes down to that. But owning a Disney vacation rental can be super profitable. And to be honest with you, if you're already coming to Orlando, it could be a knockout of the park. Like, it could solve all your issues. And look, if you're saving money traveling out here to where now you're not paying for the rental, you're literally just staying for the days you are inside that home, or maybe you just come during the winter and you want it to pay for itself during the summer, that's an option too. So it can be a great thing, but again, it's just the numbers. I love numbers. If you don't love numbers, this number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me and the team to help you get that vacation rental set up. Call, text, email, doesn't matter what you do. Like, this is another area that we do every single day. I have personally invested in short-term rentals. I enjoyed it. It is a part of my business that I continue to move forward for in the future, and I'm happy to help you make that decision, whether it's your first one or your 10th, does not matter. Happy to have that set up for you. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some insight and some ideas you should think about when owning a Disney vacation rental in Orlando, Florida, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.